How many times have you heard this? The Nintendo Switch 2 is a horrible console that does not play third-party games well at all, or hardly any games at all. It doesn't run anything well at all. Or at least something very similar to that effect. What in the world is wrong with Nintendo, and why does their hardware suck? Why do these games not run as well as the other consoles? Blah blah blah. All of those types of arguments. Well, when the Nintendo Switch 2 was revealed and its hardware was also revealed, and we knew it was going to be capable of outputting up to 4K and 120 Hz, we knew that this console was going to be a powerhouse. And a lot of people did not talk about it at the time as much as I felt like I did. This console is a powerhouse. And the fact that, just again, I cannot reiterate this enough, we can take all of these games on the go, anywhere we'd like, even though the docking is going to get more out of your console, it's going to get more out of your games. The whole point of the Switch and the Switch 2 is that you can take it out of the dock and take it somewhere else. I can play massive, beautiful looking games like Mario Kart World and Donkey Kong Bonanza wherever I want, while also docking it at home and getting even more out of it. So every time I go somewhere and bring it back, it's almost as if I am playing it in a new lens because it just looks that much better. My point here to start this video is just the Nintendo Switch 2 is a great console. It works perfectly to what it is supposed to be doing, and all of the games that run on it, or at least all of the games that run like they should on it, are amazing. Here we move over to the third-party developers and the indie developers and all of the other people who just have not been able to release the best looking games on this console and have not been able to utilize the features of it as well as they should. I think the biggest example of this right now is Elden Ring. We have not seen a lot of gameplay from this game, but people have been saying that it is abhorrent on the Switch 2, and that is just totally unacceptable in my opinion for a console that runs games as well as it does already. Knowing games like Mario Kart World and just other games like Cyberpunk 2077, like there is definitely a lot to be had with this console, and the question is what developers are able to do to get the most out of it. Now, I do understand fully that Nintendo did not provide a lot of people the access to these dev kits, and that is kind of a problem in my opinion. I really do think that Nintendo should have given these people more options to work with before the console release, so that way we could have a lot more third-party output here. But I just am very frustrated with the way that people have been talking about this console and the discourse around it, because I think today I have proof as to why this console is capable of so much more than these third-party developers have been letting on and what their games have been looking like. Another very frustrating one is Persona 3 Reload. That game does not run as well as it should on this console. It has every capability to run even better than it does, and yet it just doesn't. That game runs at about 30 FPS, and people have been saying it is a perfectly fine port to the Switch 2, but it isn't the best way to play the game. And as I was thinking about if I wanted to get that game, if I wanted to get a couple other third-party outings, I was just like, man, is it really the fact that the Switch 2 can't handle these things? Is it really just that Nintendo did not optimize this hardware enough for these developers? I was really ready to throw in the towel, I'm not gonna lie. I was ready to say, you know what, maybe this console just isn't as powerful as it should be. But then I saw this. I saw this clip of Resident Evil 9 Requiem that was announced in the past direct to be coming to the Nintendo Switch 2. And it was one of those games in which I personally was thinking, man, this looks pretty decent, but I'm sure it's going to have a lot of bugs, it's going to have a lot of problems, the frame rate is going to dip, people are going to be frustrated with it, and it's just going to be another inferior way to play a game that you could play on a PS5 and it would look way, way better. And yet, I have been proven so wrong. And I have come to the conclusion that it is not the Switch 2's fault that games run poorly on it. It is the developers' problem that they do not know how to optimize it as well as they should. Because yes, this is a cutscene here, but it will get to gameplay in a little bit, and the gameplay looks just as smooth as it does on other consoles. Now, of course, it isn't as powerful as a PS5. It isn't as powerful as an Xbox Series X. That's not at all what I expected, and that's not what anyone who buys a Switch is expecting. But what I was expecting with this console, and what I think this is finally starting to deliver, is on-par experiences. This doesn't have to be the best of the best. What it does need to be is acceptable. It needs to be on par. It needs to be good enough. And this is more than good enough in my opinion. In fact, looking at PS5 gameplay of this game, this does not look far off from it at all. And as I skip forward in this video here towards some more gameplay, I just want you to look at how crisp this game looks. It is so good. It is so unbelievably good. And if all these games, all these third-party games, games like Elden Ring, games like Persona 3 Reload, if all these other games could look like this, could run like this, oh my goodness, why would I ever want to buy a PlayStation? Why would I ever want to buy an Xbox? I could just play all these games on this console. And as this gameplay continues to play in the background here, I just want to really focus again on this point. The Nintendo Switch 2 is a powerhouse. It is one of the most powerful handhelds of all time. And at the same time, you can also dock it and play it on the TV, and that makes it even better. And again, I just want to reiterate over and over and over again, any game, any third-party game that comes out on the Nintendo Switch 2 from now on does not have an excuse. From now on, any game that does not look like this is now, in my mind, a problem of the developers making their games for this hardware. They did not take the time to truly port over their games to make it the best possible experience for the Nintendo Switch 2. They did not spend enough time developing this game on this hardware. They did not spend enough time caring about us as the Switch audience. They decided they wanted to just port out a crappy little port, 30 FPS, something like that, with Persona 3 Reload, where it's just a great game and a minimized experience because they wasted all of their time on either just trying to figure things out to begin with, or on deadlines, or I don't know. There are probably a bunch of other factors outside of simply the developers not being good at their jobs. I'm sure these developers across all the industry here are phenomenal at what they do, and I am not at all underselling their value, but I just can't look at the Switch 2. I cannot look at Resident Evil 9 Requiem and look at any other game the same way. Now, another game that is coming up here is Borderlands 4. And unfortunately, that game was delayed. And the really, really, really amazing thing about this Resident Evil game is that it's not coming out of nowhere. It's not just like, oh, the game released 10 years ago and now we're finally putting on the Switch 2 because we spent all our time twiddling our thumbs and now it's on the Switch 2. No, it is launching day and date with all of the other platforms. This version will be available day one alongside the PS4, Xbox Series X, all those other big versions. You can choose from day one whether or not you want to play your game on the Switch 2 or on your other platforms. And that was something that was so infuriating to me about the Nintendo Switch. Sure, a lot of people were just Nintendo fans who bought Switches, and they really didn't pay a lot of money towards any of those third-party developers or those games, and a lot of people just bought Nintendo games because that's what a lot of Switch owners do. But the actual problem with those third-party games didn't tend to be the graphics. Yes, there were games that were just awful looking and that did not have any love or care put into them, but a lot of times I felt as though the actual game was fine. It just depended on when it was releasing. And the release dates were never as good as I wanted them to be. They always seemed to be behind. They always seemed to be later on. We didn't get Persona 5 until almost 6 years into this console's lifespan. I mean, games like that have no excuse, games that should be able to run pretty well on the Switch, should be able to be ported over pretty easily, they just took a long time. And everyone who had other consoles outside of the Nintendo Switch and Switch 2, of course, nowadays, they would just decide, okay, I'm just going to play it on my PS5. If there's any third-party game I'm interested in, I'm not even really considering the Switch. When the Switch 2 came around, when all of those graphics were released, when we knew much more data and information about this console and what it could handle, I thought that those days were going to be done. I thought that with third-party games, we were going to get everything day and date and it was going to be on par. Now, certainly, I didn't expect it to be the same, but at the same time, you are sacrificing a little bit of that graphical fidelity just so you're able to play it on the go. And for a lot of people, that is entirely worth it. For games like Persona 3 Reload, I am so disappointed at how that game looks because playing those games on a TV is time consuming. I would much rather have a game like that on my handheld, on my Switch 2, so that way if I have any time here and there just to quickly go into that, do a little battle, go through some story beats, finish a day, and then boom, I get right back to whatever I needed to do. When I sit down in front of my TV, I am usually dedicating a long time period to playing my games, and the Switch and Switch 2 have revolutionized how we're able to play these games. So it's a huge deal to see Resident Evil Requiem coming day and date on the Switch 2, and we're also getting Resident Evil 7 and 8, I believe, Village, and the other one, I'm not sure what it's called, but I hope I really do hope that those games are on par with their originals as well, because if this game, Requiem, can run as well as it looks, those other games should also be able to do the exact same thing, and we are finally getting those additions without the cloud versions on the Nintendo Switch. And yet, even though I am here saying that this is all on the third developers, it's all on those third parties, any games that look poorly or are not able to meet those deadlines are just the developer's fault. I can't help but also see that there are struggles with this hardware because of this game. Borderlands 4. Here is a tweet from the team. Greetings, Vault Hunters. We need to share that the release of Borderlands 4 on the Nintendo Switch 2 is being delayed. We do not take this decision lightly, but are committed to ensuring we deliver the best possible experience to our fans, and the game needs additional development and polish time to do that. Our hope is to also better align this release with the addition of cross saves, which we are working on and recognize is very important. We will update you all on the new release timing once we've fully adjusted our plans. In accordance with Nintendo's policy, all digital pre-orders to date will be canceled. Customers can initiate that process themselves now, or it will happen automatically starting on Friday, September 26th. For questions about the Nintendo eShop, contact the link. For physical pre-orders, reach out to corresponding retailers. We greatly appreciate the feedback, support, and patience of our fans and community. It's truly what keeps us going. This is a very, very important tweet, in my opinion, for the future of the Nintendo Switch 2 and what third-party support could potentially look like as we move forward. Borderlands 4, released on September 12th, and that is very important because it was this month and the Switch 2 was going to get its edition very soon after the fact of the initial release, but it wasn't day and date. Borderlands 4 released, and it was met with pretty good reviews. I mean, the reviewers themselves enjoyed it, but here on Metacritic we can see a lot of the players themselves apparently did not. Now listen, it is always a good thing for developers to look at their product and say, you know what, it did not meet our quality standard, it does not look or run or play as well as it should, so we're going to delay it and make sure that when you do get this game, it is the best possible experience. Absolutely not. I have zero problem with that. I think that is the best way for developers to handle their games. However, I think there is an unfortunate precedent being set here with the Switch, and now with the Switch 2. Yet again, we can see games that would have released day and date, games that would have had a lot of hype behind them, ending up being delayed, or not at all just meeting those dates, or just never coming at all. Borderlands 4 is one of those games that is coming. We know it will come eventually, and they are making sure they take their time to make this game the best game it can possibly be on the Nintendo Switch 2, even though it is delayed. We know that they're also working on different features, but that's a problem, right? This is where I just want to highlight here. They're not talking just about developing and polishing. That is definitely a part of it, but they also said, our hope is to better align this release with the addition of cross saves. And so that means that they just didn't implement these features from day one. They did not plan accordingly. They did not take the time to think, you know what, this is how this should be from the start, rather than just saying, okay, now we're going to delay the game, rather than just working from the start with what it needed to be. And that is very frustrating in my opinion. I think that they should have definitely known this is the type of game that they want day and date on the Switch 2. This is the type of game that really could have seen some extra sales from those people looking to buy more games on their new console. Because what did we see with the Nintendo Switch? People bought third-party games a lot in the first year and in the years to come because they wanted stuff to play on it while they were waiting for their franchise to hit the Switch. The reality is, most people don't buy every single first-party game, and most people don't even buy 70% of first-party games. Most people, and this is the reality that I just really have a hard time swallowing sometimes, and a lot of people do as well. If you're watching this video, you're probably the outlier here, but people in the United States, people throughout the world, most people only buy about 5 games per year, if that. Usually it's more like 2 to 3, and that is if you get it day one full price. Most people aren't willing anymore in this age of expensive games to go out there and buy games that look interesting because they don't want to waste their money on something that they don't know is going to be amazing from the get-go. And here's the thing, right? When you release your game, your third-party game on the other platforms and don't release it on the Switch day one, you have already lost tons of potential people who are going to buy it on that hardware, and even from people who might have bought it who don't have the other hardware. you have lost out on so many potential sales by not releasing it day and date and not having your act together with it. Those owners of the Switch who don't have any other platforms, who just have their Switch 2s and they only want to play those games, but they might buy your game if you release it day and date, they know they're not going to buy it if it comes out a few months after, because then they don't care and no one's talking about it anymore. For the people who already own those other consoles, they especially aren't going to buy it if they want it already, because they just are going to get it on those consoles that already run it better, that it's there already, and they know I'm not going to wait, because they want the game, they want that particular experience from that particular console, and any hope of buying it on the Switch 2, well, it just went out the window, because why would I wait if I already have another console capable of running it much better anyways? Essentially, developers are gambling on the fact that the Switch 2 is portable, and yet those games are going to be even more obnoxious to develop for this console and for other consoles moving forward as the industry starts to shift towards handheld gaming even more. The Nintendo Switch caught lightning in a bottle, and the Nintendo Switch 2 has set out to prove that it wasn't just lightning in a bottle, it is in fact a successful business model moving forward. And the Xbox developers saw the same thing. Those hardware manufacturers saw the Nintendo Switch and decided to make their own handhelds, the ROG Ally X and the ROG Ally. Both are $600 for the ROG Ally and $1,000 for the ROG Ally X. And of course, we know there have been rumors for years that not only Xbox would make these handhelds, but that PlayStation was working on a handheld outside of the Portal themselves, something that they could also take anywhere. So handheld gaming is coming back with a burning passion, because everyone's looking at the Switch, seeing its success, seeing Nintendo's success, and are trying to replicate it in their own way. So what does this mean for third-party developers moving forward? Well, it means if they can't get their act together for something like the Switch 2, how can we truly hope for them to get their act together for all of these other handheld platforms? What does the future of gaming look like outside of these first-party games? It does look a little bit, unfortunately, bleak, doesn't it? Now listen, these other handhelds are certainly going to be more powerful than the Nintendo Switch 2. At least the ROG Ally X will definitely be a lot more powerful, and that may in fact help people, but at a certain point we're going to get to where there are just so many consoles to develop for that these developers are going to have to decide which ones to not develop for. And of course, I think Xbox will probably be first on that chopping block once PlayStation makes their own handheld. But still, I don't want any of these consoles to have to be on the chopping block. I would prefer if all of them were to succeed in their own way and for the competition to push everyone to be a little bit better, but that's exactly what those developers are going to have to do. They're going to have to look at everything and decide, you know what is worth it and what isn't worth it. And the one that will get left out, probably Xbox, but we'll see, will probably be the one to go out of business. And then we will see something like Sony and Nintendo fighting for that #1 spot, and they don't really even battle each other because they both dominate their own niches. Nintendo dominates the handheld market and also that gamer-friendly, family-friendly mantra. And of course, Sony dominates that home console, core gamer, mature audience that most people, in America at least, are kind of looking for. Now, the Nintendo Switch and Switch 2 are able to really get into that market even more now with the Switch 2's capabilities, but the bottom line is, if you want to make sure you get yourself all of these Sony exclusives, all of the most mature games, all of the horror games, all of the shooters, you're going to get yourself an Xbox or a PlayStation. And if you want really innovative experiences, amazing platformers, colorful games that provide you some of the best experiences on the market, you're going to get a Nintendo Switch and a Switch 2. The niches have established themselves, and both are trying to really cut into each other's profit here to get even more. And of course, that is greed, and no one likes greedy companies. But in this case, that greed, that fight to the top, that fight to be better, it's going to end up benefiting us, the consumer, in the long run if we decide to vote with our wallets. Now, the main point of this video had to do a lot more with Resident Evil Requiem and how the Switch 2 is able to run these games, so I want to just reiterate that point one more time to end this video and just look at these stats here. Look at these graphics. First of all, we have confirmed ray tracing, which make everything feel a lot better, looks more smoothly. The DLSS, the upscaling, that AI upscaling is working overtime to make this game look even better. Now, this person is reporting above 30 FPS, but I have seen people saying it is at least 50 FPS, so somewhere around that range. And the downsides here are that the graphics do have noticeable texture differences and that the FPS drops can go down, which is to be expected. I mean, I'm not going to say that this is a perfect port by any means. It's just highly impressive for what the Nintendo Switch has done and what the Switch 2 was expected to do after its initial release. Games like Cyberpunk 2077, I'll say it once, I'll say it again, those games are the future. Cyberpunk 2077 and now Resident Evil Requiem, it is a trend, my friends. This console is capable of more, and do not let anyone tell you otherwise. It is perfectly capable of letting all of these games come to the console. It just depends on the developers, the way they're working with this console, and how they are deciding to prioritize their releases. Well, thank you very much for making it to the end of this video. What do you think about the Switch 2, its capabilities, third-party games? Do you even buy third-party games? Are you just a Nintendo fan? Or do you not even care about any of this at all? And if so, thank you for making it to the end anyways. You're pretty cool for that. Make sure you like this video and subscribe it if you enjoyed. Click that notification bell, and of course, click that new hype button. It is a very important button that helps this channel grow even more. Make sure you click on that link in the description to join my membership program, get some early access to videos, and also just be able to support the channel in general. Click on the left side of your screen to see my video breaking down the new president and CEO for Nintendo of America. There were a lot of big changes there. And click on the right side of your screen to see my video breaking down Yoshi and his brand new trailer. Thank you for making it to the end. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Have yourself a beautiful day. This has been Ray's Nintendo Talk. I have been Ray, and I will see you all in the next video.